Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar in partnership with Bowbridge and Log2, Securing SAP from Ransomware Attacks. I'm joined here with our expert speakers, Holger Stumm from Log2, Jörg Schneider-Simon from Bowbridge, and our CTO from SecurityBridge, Ivan Mans. Holger, if you want to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Holger Stumm. I'm founder and managing director of security company Log2. We are specialized in SAP security. We exist for over 10 years now. And our main expertise is everything around SAP security. And today we are the authors of that ransomware attack vector for SAP. And next, I think Jörg.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Holger. So my name is Jörg Schneider-Simon. Thank you for the introduction, Patty. I'm a CTO and one of the founders here at Bowbridge. Delighted to be here with you. And my role in this little spiel today is to show you the protection side of the thing that we'll be presenting to you. So whereas Holger is usually not a bad guy, but today he's going to play the bad guy. And Ivan and myself, we will have the pleasure to show you how you can protect your systems against these types of attacks.
Good, thanks, Holger, Jörg. You know, it's a true pleasure to have you guys here with us. And I do sense, Patty, that we have a lot of techies in the house. I think, the three gentlemen on the line, they were equally technical as myself. I'm one of the founders, but also the current CTO of SecurityBridge. And the reason I'm in the call here is to basically be the glue between the attacker and the defender. So I'm going to make it visible what these guys are doing using the SecurityBridge platform.
Perfect, all right. Then with that, we will start our webinar. We have three different scenarios, the attack, the defense, and then the attack demo. And we will start with the attack scenario.
Yeah, thanks. Let me talk a little bit about the attack scenario. What we are doing is we have prepared a piece of ransomware, and it's basically an ABAP, a custom SAP custom code written in the system, which allows in two steps the complete takeover or the complete ransomware encryption of an SAP system. Basically, what we do is we do an upload, a GUI upload that takes a local file that has a true ransomware script and writes that file to the SAP server. So the trick here is that we do the GUI upload with a regular custom code SAP function call and write it to the SAP system, to the local server, into the local file system by means of any just regular ABAP commands. And as a result, everything is in the script. And as we can see on the next slide, that the next step is once we have written that file to the disk, is that we execute this one. And this is really the critical part that we will also see a little bit more in depth later, is that we use standard SAP available commands, especially here something called call system, which is in SAP system function, SAP C-level call, that allows to execute an ABAP, any kind of command, any kind of dynamic parameter passed on to that call to execute it. So for example, if we take a call Python ransom.py, so the freshly written Python script, and execute it with the Python interpreter, then the ransomware will really start to execute and do their dirty work on the system. And these two elements really lead to total takeover, or total encryption of the file system of the targeted SAP server. And this is the attack part. And now what can you do really? And this is also the purpose why we sit here together. What can we do to prevent these kind of attacks that can be executed by any given SAP programmer, remote consultant, whoever has access to the SAP system and has in the development system the access rights to create and execute an ABAP. So I think Jörg's up to you, the next part.
Yes.
For
yes.
how you defend against me.
Thank you, Holger. We're doing our best. So the defense scenario actually, let me take one step back and just explain to you a little bit of what this is classified as, the thing that Holger will be showing to you. And actually, this is classified as a so-called unrestricted file upload vulnerability. And if you Google this sort of attack pattern, you will find it listed as Common Weakness Enumeration 434. And the Open Web Application Security Project, funny enough, just mentions exactly the scenario that Holger is going to demonstrate here as one of the key risks of an unrestricted file upload vector. And you can see that OWASP really tells that uploading a file into the context of an application is usually the first step in a multi-step attack. And then the next step at some point, using a different vulnerability, would be to bring that code to execution. And like Holger mentioned, the consequences can vary from complete system takeover, system overload, DOS type of attacks. And in our case, it's going to be the encryption of the entire SAP application server and all of the drives that it can access using a ransomware. So obviously, this is something that we want to protect against. And there is a misconception among many SAP customers that if they have an antivirus deployed at the OS level, that this is something that would prevent this type of attack from happening. Well, the truth is it is not preventing it from happening, because the OS antivirus doesn't even see the file transfers that go into SAP applications. The reason for that is that SAP recommends to exclude all of the paths somehow related to the SAP application from the real-time scanning, meaning that those tools that typically monitor file system access don't even see those uploads into the SAP application. And that's ultimately the reason why SAP has been recommending the use of their SAP virus scan interface. You may or may not be familiar with the S/4HANA security guide, that piece of literature that has been around ever since S/4HANA launched. But the VSI interface itself is much older than that. It has been around since the day of NetWeaver. And in the S/4HANA security guide, SAP actually points out in detail that their recommendation is to scan files that are uploaded into the SAP application, use signature-based detection for malware, use MIME type detection, which is made to ensure that the file that is being uploaded is really what it pretends to be. And also they recommend the use of active content detection, which is detecting any executable type of content that's embedded in a file that may not be malware by definition. So in our case here, we're uploading a ransomware script that is detected as malware, but there's a whole other category of content that is not detected as malware, but still has the potential to compromise the SAP application itself. So hence those 3 bullet points that SAP is recommending for protection against malicious file uploads. The product we'll be using for this is our flagship product, Bowbridge Antivirus 4.0, the very latest version. We're using the on-premise version here, which is, product has been around for many, many, many years. It's pretty much the de facto standard when it comes to protecting SAP applications. It comes with built-in virus scanning engines. And the most critical thing here, or the most important thing, is it does not require any changes to the application. That's because the SAP virus scan interface is a kernel level API. It means that any application running on top of the stack will automatically benefit from the malware protection that is in place for certain file transfer vectors, as we will see as soon as the software is installed and the so-called virus scan profiles have been activated. And obviously, this type of scenario works just the same in on-prem in centralized or decentralized scanning services, and also works as a hybrid SaaS service in the cloud. So with that, I think it's time to get real and pass it on to Ivan so that he can describe a little bit what he can do with his tool to help you guys gain visibility into what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you correctly phrased it, getting visibility, because as soon as we see that Holger comes to play and he starts executing his attack vector, the point where it already starts, the starting point of the attack vector, that a code inject or a critical program that allows such a vulnerability to be exploited, would belong to the custom development pillar. Now, what SecurityBridge is, it is a holistic security suite that covers all the different elements that you would need to build an SAP application security program. And shown here in the slide is just the 4 main pillars. So we're gonna, in the actual exploit, are we gonna use threat detection to basically identify Holger trying to upload critical data or upload a critical program, execute a critical program. Virus scanning is going to identify it. So that we will see within the threat detection component. Now, besides threat detection, which is that continuous live element, you also have a way to secure your system by making sure that you've worked on all the known vulnerabilities, what we call system hardening or vulnerability management. So we will have a quick look at compliance management. How can you make sure that your virus scanning profiles are correctly configured, etc. Making sure that all your critical, the vulnerabilities for critical patches are all fully implemented. And then clearly the 4th element is that custom code element that we will also shortly see in the actual exploit demo. But I think, so far all the PowerPoint material, I think, the joy is really in seeing the real stuff. So guys, Holger, I'll give the word to you. Go and attack the system. Holger, you may be
turning
muted.
on the microphone sometimes helps.
Indeed.
Yeah. Indeed. I prepared something, and so let me just quickly. Can you see my share? I think so. Yeah.
Confirmed.
Yeah. And what this one basically, oops, gives me strange messages. Do you still see?
We can still see evildoer upload.
Yeah, because some other evil showed me the message screen is not transmitted. Okay, anyway, these are technicalities, so let's just go into the real hack. What we see on our SAP screen here is the transaction SE80. So in this scenario, I'm a developer turned evil, which means either that the identity was stolen or an external contractor was just getting paid for doing evil works, or local developer, same thing. Anyway, I'm in the system, and I'm able in the development system to develop whatever code I want. So far, so usual. And what we have here is that we have an ABAP called evildoer upload, and it's basically in the core something that has a call function GUI upload, which is in standard SAP function call to upload any kind of local file that I have on my local file system and read it into an internal table. And then this internal table basically is written in a very regular loop construction here onto the file system. So basically, read any kind of local file, upload it, and write it to the file system. There is nothing here that is suspicious in terms of standard SAP functionality. And the function module GUI upload usually is something that is executed thousands of times in a larger system, because from uploading Excels into financial financials, to uploading goods entries, goods receipts, whatever. Lots of applications are using this kind of functionality. The second one really makes it then finally evil, and this one then executes the uploaded file on the file system. Basically, what I have here is I have in the core this called system command, which is something that SAP said it's deprecated. You should not use it anymore. In RISE system, in SAP RISE systems, it's even worse because you are not allowed to execute this kind of file access functionality or operating system access, because behind the scenes, really, the ABAP now gets control over this operating system, can execute any kind of call to the operating system with no further authorization check in the role of an SIT ADM, which is like a root user to the Unix system. Means everything I can just pass on to that kernel call here gets executed as a nearly root user on the operating system. So what I'm doing here is I can either execute something like a list command, which is no dangerous at all, but I can also execute a Python call like Python and then ransom.py, the file I uploaded. So let's just check how it works. We have the upload function here, and I execute this one. And basically what I'm doing is I'm reading that local file and put it into a file called ransom.py on the operating system. Execute that. And here we go. The important part here also is, this is not a play file. This is not something which says, hey, I'm a ransomware. This is real ransomware. You can just identify this by seeing that it has a public-private key a construction here. So basically, it uses a public key to encrypt that file. So it means also this should have been detected. It is not, because the antivirus is not yet active. And since I have done this, let's just switch to the other program, which is the evildoer command. That really could execute that. So just do something harmless. Just do a list command here on the operating system. And this is pretty familiar. This is a directory where all the log files are written. And then we have somewhere here where it's like, once we have all the security logs passed on, there should be a file called ransom.py. So we got a lot of stuff here. So just you can assume that's there. And what we can do now, let's just look at the file. Here is a file that was written, ransomware. So, and the file actually allows us to just execute that one. And if I execute finally the command Python ransom.py, if I would just now execute this function here, basically the Python interpreter would be called with that ransom program, and this means it's really executed. I don't do that now because otherwise it would really start to be encrypting the whole directory tree. So this is the attack vector. So it's pretty bad. And let's turn over to Jörg, who wants to turn on finally the antivirus so that I get detected.
Good, Holger, and many thanks for not executing this yet, because although we do run within a sandbox environment, I still would like to use a sandbox environment to run through the entire webinar.
Yeah, sure.
I was just saying thank you very much, Holger, because ultimately you could have had the chance here to cut that webinar really, really short, but that's obviously not what we want to do. So let me show you exactly where the protection mechanism fits in SAP. So I've mentioned that the virus scan interface is a proprietary kernel level API that sits in the ABAP application server, which means all of the configuration items that you need are already there in standard SAP. There's a couple of transactions. One is called vscan group, one is called vscan, which is the one that you're seeing here, which is the definition of the so-called virus scan provider. And that's where you can basically see the product that is installed on the system. You can see what the drivers are that are loaded to prevent the actual to provide the actual scanning. So we have a MIME type scanning. Remember, that's what SAP recommended, MIME type scanning. We have active content detection that is active here. We have an archive extraction, which is recursively scanning archive, and then we have two built-in virus scanning engines, Sophos and Trellix, the company formerly known as McAfee, who are the providers for the actual virus scanning part of it. However, even having this installed and active on the system, it basically only means that you're sitting in the car with the engine running. You haven't put it in gear yet, and that's what we're going to do in a different transaction called vscan profile. And the vscan profile transaction, and that's the one that you can see here, shows that there is a whole list of so-called virus scan profiles that SAP delivers out of the box. And each of those virus scan profiles refers to an inbound or outbound file transfer vector. So you would see things like GUI upload and GUI download. You would see things like kprocreate whenever a file is being created in the knowledge provider. You would find things like SMTP inbound for email attachments coming into the system, SOAP messages, and there's a couple of others. Depending on what modules you have installed on the system, you will see this list changing. What we want to do...
Sorry to interrupt you, but allow me a question here. We now
course.
see a very classical SAP UI, but nowadays we see more and more customers using Fury and new technologies. Now, does the same coverage also exist for the more modern front ends?
Oh, that's a great question, Ivan. Yes, actually it does, because the virus scan interface does not only extend to the core application server, it's also implemented in other components, such as the gateway. So if we're talking Fiori apps and we're talking data coming in as base 64 encoded strings over OData, then those are being scanned at the gateway. And there's a separate transaction on the systems that would allow you to configure the virus scanning at the gateway, and then basically point to one of those profiles that you want to reference to maintain the settings that you want to scan any files coming in via UI5 or Fiori apps. But obviously, Holger and I, being old school, we'll move back to the old GUI upload.
Okay, fair enough. But thanks for answering the question.
Welcome. And the evildoer ABAP that Holger is using the GUI upload module. So all I have to do here is to basically activate this GUI upload profile, which will then in turn reference the one profile that we have called Bowbridge here, which contains a couple of settings on how to perform these scans. So if I just save this right now, already the protection for any file transfers coming into the system via GUI upload is activated. So I'm pretty confident that if Holger tries his attack again, he should now be able to, he should no longer be able to actually upload the malware. So Holger, you want to give it another try?
Yeah, let's give it a try. And I need to just be able to share the view here. And go back into my nice old school virus attacks, nevertheless pretty lethal attack against the SAP system. So let me try again. the upload, and like I said, this is a real ransomware, so let's see if it gets detected, because a virus scanner usually should recognize this one. And yeah, what we've seen here is that it gives me an error message that the virus scanner now that is active really has seen in the upload stream, even before the ABAP really or the virus code reaches the ABAP engine, that the GUI upload was really intercepted and disrupted so that it could not finish. And it means that it tells, hey, there's a real malware in this one, has already the real keyword, because this is a category where this malware is usually recognized, and also tells where it comes from. And this is also pretty new, because neither SAP nor the security audit log could really detect what is in the upstream and where has it come from. So what was the object that was coming from? And these are additional functions. And yeah, as I'm now really be detected as an attacker, I think I turn to Ivan, because he will now just tell us the situation. What does SecurityBridge really sees from all these attack vectors?
Yes, and I can confirm, we've seen you. Because I just did a bit of a refresh on my screen here, and I can say that basically all the actions that you've seen in the past few steps, they're really visible within SecurityBridge. Now, what you see now is the SecurityBridge platform, just a standard installation within the sandbox. And as you say, under core security, these are the four main pillars. We talk about event monitoring. You can see there's one red alert. There's exactly the virus infection or the malware activation or upload that we've seen or being caught, it will throw a high severity alert. And based upon this, as soon as we say there's a high severity event within the system, you can also automatically trigger actions at machine speed. You can send out an incident notification, you can send out an email alert, etc. So there's a lot of automation possible directly out of the box, but based upon the intelligence provided by tools like Bowbridge. Now, before we even go into the actual threat detection, there's also that component, because the attack actually started way earlier. The guys did have custom code on the system that did allow an upload. Now, that was a starting point of this entire exploit. Now, if we go into, and then you see event monitoring, security compliance, patching. So this is basically system hardening. And the last element is code security. If we dive into that code security topic, we can see, and we're just using the very same test box that we've used for the webinar here. We've done a code scan on the entire system. And if I just do, and you can see I've already done the filtering here, I knew that the object was called evil. So the code scanner has already picked up those vulnerabilities, and I think, Holger, you've done that probably early April. That we see it was identified on the 2nd of April, so already a few days ago. So we directly have seen your code being installed on the system, and I'm able to directly go into the actual source code. So we already spotted you quite early in the game. Now, thereafter, we went into the virus scanning topic. We also installed the virus scanner on our own sandbox. But here I have to say, that's part of our security compliance module. That all the elements that you would need to perfectly configure your SAP system using a predefined security baseline. And if I just search for the word virus, you will see indeed we do have support for making sure that the virus setup, the interface, is correctly configured. And here we have to say, not all profiles, and this is not just a fresh runner. So this is something we're looking at, probably all the results. If I now just say re-execute, it's not going to revalidate everything. Then we're going to see we need to make sure that all the active profiles are correctly active, the profile settings are correctly active. So, in a hardening step, as soon as you go into really securing your system, you will have to make sure that those checks are all green. So you start with a solid basis. But then probably the most important thing is the monitoring. So you've done your homework, you do run an active virus scanner, you correctly configured your systems, that you need to monitor. Now, it is already great that Bowbridge is now able to stop the infection from actually reaching your SAP systems, but you still want to be alerted so as soon as it would happen. Now, if we just have a look at the events that have happened in the last few minutes, and we indeed see there's a whole bunch of events, and again, we've not done any filtering, this is just a sandbox, but we directly see a number of high severity events popping up. Here we can see, for instance, virus scan interface, it shows a virus infection. So we exactly see the alert originating from the very last scan. And these scans are real time. So everything that you see in the screen here is just generated instantly, and it may have already generated outbound emails, raising support tickets, raising an actual incident. Now, going to the very start, Holger, you have also executed in the beginning of the webinar, you actually went into the ABAP source code editor, SE38, I think you've used,
yep.
And you executed it. And even the execution is already automatically recorded. So we can see you've done the upload, you've done the command. And I think you tried to do it twice because of before and after the virus activation, so that was instantly visible. If we then go a step back, we can also see the virus scan interface itself. It has raised an alert for the actual exploit. And the very same alert that you saw in that pop-up earlier that Holger showed you, you also see here. Now, if we click on those three little dots and we click on investigate, now we can see what else did that user or did that terminal do. So we will be able to actually walk back through the entire attack chain to see where it all started. And Holger, I know that you've authenticated on this demo box using a standard password. We know that you have privileged access. So if I just go from the bottom up to the top, this is basically an immediate explanation of the attack vector that you've shown. Now, combining all those elements of continuously monitoring your system, making sure that your vulnerability management, so your hardening of the system is up to the mark, combining it with code security, so all those different layers, as soon as you have those in control, then you're actually pretty well safeguarded from attacks as we've seen in today's webinar. Jörg, you may want to quickly guide us through a quick summary of what we have learned in this session here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So basically what we saw here was Holger exploiting an unrestricted file upload vulnerability by being able to upload a file onto the context of the SAP application server, in this specific case even into the OS layer of the application server, which is the most critical variant of this type of attacks. And it's important for everybody to understand that file uploads do actually present a significant threat to SAP applications in the example that we've seen, but also in other types of attack vectors. I know for a fact that Holger, who does a lot of SAP penetration testing, they actually expose these types of vulnerabilities. So if you commission a serious SAP penetration test with Holger, this is something that would be flagged in his report as a finding and a potential risk of vulnerability that needs to be addressed. And obviously, if your system or the company is being audited, the results that you would see in the audits generated, the reports generated out of SecurityBridge would also be something that would require a business level mitigation, or at least the ability for you to demonstrate to your auditor that you have put in place the measure to prevent this type of attack from actually damaging your system. And in order to be able to get that visibility to see these things coming in, that's where you need tools like SecurityBridge that will continuously monitor all different aspects of the security in your system. And and like Ivan said, raise a flag if something suspicious is going on, and then keep the track and keep the record of the things that were going on, so that you are able to after the fact even implement proper protection measures, or even run the forensics that you need to run on this type of attack. And obviously, in order to protect or enforce the protection against this type of attacks, you need some SAP specific tooling. SAP has provided the virus scan interface, which is something that you can use to prevent these types of attacks at the SAP application layer, because like I said earlier, the OS layer protection doesn't really help you here at all. So with that, it is up to me to say thank you and pass it back on to Patty for some final closing remarks.
Perfect. Thank you for your expertise and for everything. We do have a couple of questions that are coming in the chat, so if you don't mind, I will just ask you guys and you can reply. So one of the questions we got was, how dangerous is this threat in reality for customers?
I just pick up that question because as a penetration tester, I'll execute it myself, and also I've seen similar attacks in the wild. Call system is really one of the threats that are really dangerous. So and I would say every second, third site that I'm on, they have seen attacks based on that vector. And so the meanings that also Ivan showed that see that this is a dangerous code element, scan the codes for that element, and also see where it is in action, who is executing that is really vital. And so this is no lab exercise. This is out in the wild, and this is a real threat.
Perfect, thank you. Another question that came in the chat was if there are any special considerations when you have RISE or S/4HANA public cloud.
Yeah, maybe I picked that up as well, or maybe then just pass it on to Jörg afterwards. Especially when it's RISE system, it's interesting because when I'm doing this kind of attack, I'm on the operating system level, and SAP, of course, owns in a RISE system, even if it's a private cloud, the operating system level. So it's a breach of contract. Besides that, it's a pretty evil hack as well. And so customer must really take all precautions that this does not happen in a RISE environment. And maybe Jörg, you can just out of your experience with SAP, can really tell some more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially given that we have quite a few customers who are already deploying their systems on RISE while are in the process of moving to RISE. This is a bit tricky one, like Holger said, because the attack vector starts at the application layer, but it really affects the OS layer, which is further down. So it is like bridging two different types of layer, where the application layer in RISE typically the customer is in charge of, and the OS layer, the cloud provider, ECS, SAP would be in charge of it. So when it comes to the mitigation strategy, it is super important to understand where the responsibilities for what layers lay. And it's important to understand that while SAP, in the context of RISE, for example, has the responsibility to secure the OS layer, the responsibility to secure the application layer lies 100% with the customer. So this is a model that is actually supported on RISE, where it follows the bring your own license type of model, where SAP would deploy that solution for you, but you would have to license and manage and configure it as part of your security implementation. And of course, we'd be happy to assist you with that should you decide to take a look into this type of solutions.
Perfect. And I will ask you guys one last one for the sake of time, which is, if we have a Java-based SAP application, can we also use virus scanning or incoming for incoming files?
Yeah, let me take that. I think it's down my alley. Absolutely, yes. The virus scan interface, we've seen it here on an ABAP system, but the same interface exists on Java specs. It exists in business objects. It exists in a lot of non-traditional SAP applications. And for over 10 years now, there's been a directive in SAP that any new software or any new release of a software that supports ingestion of files has to support the virus scan interface. So any type of application that you're running, if it comes from SAP, chances are extremely high that it is It is equipped with the BioScan interface, and you can use the exact same solution, just plug it on and protect your application.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, we do have way more questions. We will reach out to everyone individually to answer all questions. And if you have another question that came up during the webinar or even after, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at all the emails in the screen right now or via our websites. And yeah, I just want to say thank you again for your expertise, guys, and thank you to all our attendees for joining us today.
Yep.
Pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you.